Now, what are we talking about this morning? As I did indicate at the start of the program, that the big conversation this week has to do with the proposals by the utility companies asking Ghanaians to pay a bit more because currently they're in a dire strait. And so we've invited them this morning to tell us why we need to pay more. What exactly is the situation or the state in which these companies are? And what does that mean for the quality of services that will be rendering us going forward? That's if we agree to pay them that amount of money. And then also realistically, can we even pay what they're asking us to pay? So this is how we've structured this morning's conversation. So first of all, I'll introduce my resource persons. And one of them, in fact, the man from the Ghana Water Company Limited has a presentation he's going to make to us where he's going to walk us through, so step by step, why Ghana Water Company finds himself in this situation, what we need to do, and when we do, what they will do for us in return. So that's what essentially the presentation will capture. So, Mr. Stalimante, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, you're right. Now, Mr. Stalimante, it's been a very busy week, I guess. Yeah. Now, so Mr. Stalimante is the head of communications for the Ghana Water Company Limited. Now, I have other resource persons, equally important resource persons. Now, I do have Mr. Samuel Ko-Akwa. He is the manager in charge of strategy, risk, and compliance with GRIDCo. That's Ghana Grid Company Limited. Boss, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your presence here. And then also the man who would put all of this in perspectives to help us understand what this would mean for our economic lives. So we know that inflation is up. We know other things are up. So I'm talking about the micro. What would this mean for us in terms of our disposable incomes if these tariffs are approved? So the man is called Ken Carl Tonam Duho. I hope I got the pronunciation of his name correctly. Yes, he is a finance and economic consultant. He's also with the Imani Group. So it's good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us as well. So, Stanley, you would leave us and go to the screens and do a presentation for us. So, Mr. Stalimate is going to do a presentation shortly, after which when he's done, and I need you to pay very, very, very close attention to what he's about to do, because we're going to be asking questions based on what he's going to be telling us. So that's essentially what we'll be doing now. So how do you intend to structure this morning's conversation, even before you go to the screen? What are we to expect?
Okay, so I'll tell you I'll give a brief background on Ghana Water Company Limited.
Okay.
And then I'll take you through our challenges.
Right.
And then the little tariff that we have had.
Okay.
The way we've used that tariff.
Okay.
And then why we need some adjustment.
Okay.
And then we'll tell you where we think we should be.
Okay.
And I'll explain everything whilst
But is your presentation also going to include, for instance, what your promise to us is? If
exactly.
we grant you
exactly.
your wish.
Exactly.
It's going to
exactly.
It captures it.
Exactly.
Fantastic. So
yes.
I think we can proceed.
Okay.
From there.
Thank you very much, viewers. So this is the Ghana Water Company Limited. This is our proposal for our 2022 major tariff review. And then this will be the structure of my presentation. And so for Ghana Water Company Limited, our vision is to be a world-class leader in the utility industry. And then currently we have 90 systems that we are running. Okay. And we have almost 5,200 staff.
Okay.
And then
when you say 90 systems, what do you mean?
We have our treatment plants, our booster stations,
okay.
our mechanized boreholes, and
okay.
everything together.
Okay.
There are about 90 systems throughout the country.
Right.
Now we produce 322 million cubic meters
wow.
of water on annual basis. 322 million cubic meters.
Wow.
Okay, and we have over 12,900 kilometers of network.
Okay.
And our customer strength is 8,819, almost 820.
Okay.
And then access is 76%, access to water. And then I'll give you the definition for access to water.
Right.
And we have 15 operational regions.
Okay.
Okay, so the population that we serve entirely as consumers is over 70 million per the latest population census that was done. Because we serve the urban population of Ghana. Okay, so that is what we do as a company. Now, currently we all know that we are doing water demand management in most parts of the country. We are doing so because there's a gap between demand and supply. Okay. This gap needs to be bridged. Our target is 2030, such that by 2030 we should have 100% access to water.
So it means that every Ghanaian living everywhere must have access to water.
Yes, when we talk about access, we are not saying everybody should have water in his or her home.
Okay, so what do you mean by access to water?
But at least, if you leave your home in search for water within the some 30-meter radius, you should have water.
Okay, that's
potable water. That's access. Okay. Because there are some communities where we can't even lay the pipes. They are very old communities. You can't send pipes there. It isn't everybody who can afford the connection to his or her home. Okay. So when we say access, we are talking about some. So
distance. Proximity to water.
Proximity to water.
Or proximity to the access.
Exactly.
Water access.
So within some 30 meters, you should have potable water, whether through a standpipe, through a neighbor, or any means, a vendor or whatever. Okay, so we need to bridge that gap. So, for instance, in 2019, okay, the demand was 535.5 million cubic meters of water, and we produce 300. So there's that shortfall. We need to bridge that by 2030 or any time after 2026. We need to bridge that gap. Okay, so rationale behind this thing, our tariff proposal. Now, first of all, in 2016, the dollar was around 4.3 to the cedi.
In 2016, 4.3 to the cedi.
Now, I don't want to mention our current figure in dollars. I don't want to mention it.
Why?
But we all know. And then the tariff at the time,
right?
Okay, compared to the dollar at the time was around 144.
Okay.
Okay. Now, because of the depreciation of the Ghana cedi, now the tariff is around 1.136. Okay. Meanwhile, we all know the dollar now. Now, the tariff at the time, let's say, could buy, let's say $1,000 at the time could buy 100 bags of, let's say, one of the chemicals, our inputs into our production. Let's say aluminum sulfate. We're assuming. Okay. Now, that same $1,000 in 2022 can't buy the 100 bags of aluminum sulfate any longer because of the depreciation of the cedi.
I see.
Okay. So, for instance, if you could buy 100 cedis in, let's say, 2018 or 100 bags in 2018, in 2022 we can only buy about 60.
Right.
Okay. Then, when I move on to the next slide, I'll explain further. So, inadequacy of the tariff. Now, the tariff at 2018 was 6.9, okay, as against the cost of production of 15.6. At the time, the proposal we sent to PLC was that the cost of production was 15.6 Ghana cedis per cubic meter.
But you only granted 6.9.
But we only granted 6.9.
Meaning
so for every cubic meter of water that we produce, we lose close to 8 cedis.
Wow.
And in the beginning, I told you, annually we produce 322 million cubic meters of water annually. Okay, so that by 8 cedis, you understand?
Yes.
The 322 million by 8 cedis is the accumulated debt for a year.
And it's been lying down for all these years.
For all these years.
It has to be paid by somebody.
It has to be paid. Okay?
Wow.
So we move on. So the tariff, from the last tariff till now, there's been that debt there for us to manage.
Debt overhang.
Yes, to manage. Okay. So the tariff hasn't been adequate from the onset. And seriously, since the establishment of PLC, or since I joined Ghana Water Company Limited, we haven't had any cost-reflective tariff, or we haven't proposed any tariff that the PLC has accepted and just given to us. So every time there's a deficit. Okay. So in times past, the value of our assets was 2.2 billion. We needed to revalue the assets. At the time, the depreciation that was given to us on the value of our assets was somewhere around 200 million. Now that there's been a revaluation, and then we have moved to 17.2 million, we don't expect them to maintain the 2 million. We need at least a commensurate value as depreciation for the current assets that we have, which is what, the 17.2 billion.
Please explain that again.
So we have assets, we have equipment, we have structures and stuff, infrastructure that we need to maintain. So as part of the tariff, there's a line item for the depreciation of our assets. So we look at the value, and then based on that, there's a figure given for the depreciation. Now, in times past, in 2014, 2015, thereabout, the value of our assets was 2.2 billion. So then the PLC themselves requested that we revalue our assets. So we contracted a consultant who did it, and then it came up to 17.2 billion Ghana cedis. So the value that was given to this, our expectation is that, there will be a commensurate value for the 17.2 billion as line item, so that we can maintain our equipment, we can maintain our infrastructure.
You didn't get that too?
And outside. No, we are putting it forward to them. Yes. Now, that overhang. Now, in 2015, there was a government policy, that all loans that has been contracted on behalf of state-owned enterprises must be given to the agencies to settle or to service their own loans. Now, there's no line item within the computation of the tariff that gives us the opportunity to save some funds to service our loans. Now we are owing the government 6.2 billion cedis. How are we going to pay for these loans if there isn't any line item for it? So payment for land and crop compensation. Anytime we put up an infrastructure, we need to acquire a land. In times past, government will pay for the land. In some cases, we need to destroy some crops and all that. When we are laying pipelines and all that, we need to destroy some people's crops and acquire the land and all that. So then the government was supposed to pay this, and it is 2.7 million Ghana cedis annually. Now government has asked us to pay, or we are paying for this land and crop compensation. There's no line item for it. So we are saying that the PLC should consider, so that at least we can settle all our debts, and then we can run very well as a company. Now, we are not just also requesting for the tariff so that to burden the consumer, but we have the consumer also in mind. Now we are saying that illegal connections is affecting our operations. People are stealing a lot of water. Now, why are they stealing the water? Maybe it's the cost, or one of the factors is that the cost of new service connection is high. It is high, but it is not our making, because we don't produce the pipes. We don't produce the meters. And
these are imported items.
These are imported items. So we only have to give you without any profit, so that you pay for it. But if it is high, what can we do? We are saying that the PLC should absorb at least the cost of the meter within the tariff, so that it will reduce the new service connection fees, so that a lot more people can just walk in, and then with a little amount, you just pay, and then you are connected to our mains. Then you can have water. Then illegal connections will reduce. Our non-revenue water will also go down. Now we also have the desalination plant, which is giving us some challenges. Some challenges in terms of the way the contract is, but it is for Ghanaians. Our parliamentarians actually accepted it as it is, and we have to work with it. Whatever the thing is, we have to work with it. It is a BOOT arrangement, or a take What you take or you pay, whether you take the water or not, you still have to pay.
Whether you put the
They
desal
supply
plant to
us
use
bulk water,
or not, you pay for it.
Yes,
that's what take or pay means.
Yes.
Okay.
See, they supply us the bulk water, and we have to take, and then we distribute, collect revenue, and then we pay. But the arrangement is such that whether you take or not, there's a contractual agreement for us to pay $1.4 million $1 a month.
$1.4 million
a month. Whether we are able to sell water to that enclave at $1.4 million or whatever, we should be able to pay, and we have to pay.
To who?
To the owners. It's a private company.
Oh, it's a private company.
It's a private company.
I thought it was owned by the government of Ghana.
It's a public-private partnership thing.
It hasn't been transferred to, because if the BOT
it will be transferred after 25 years.
Oh,
for the next 25 years, every month we need to pay
$1.4
million. In addition to the cost of water that they have supplied us with.
And if there's forest exchange losses, you bear that cost as well.
Exactly. That we have
because you have to change cedis into dollars to pay the private.
Exactly. So we are collecting the revenue in Ghana cedis, and we have to pay in dollars. And then we talked about the depreciation of the cedi as against the dollar. Wow. So all these things are affecting us. Now I missed one point on some of the challenges that we face. The Galamsey.
Okay, Galamsey.
How is Galamsey affecting us as a company? We all know, and it's not just Galamsey alone, it is the pollution of our river bodies. So our river bodies are polluted through Galamsey, through sand winning, and even aquaculture and other farming activities. Okay, so if you go on the Volta River now, okay, almost every 1 nautical kilometer, okay, you see large farms, large fish farms. Okay, now what happens is that they feed the fishes with inorganic feeds. Now they are droplets, and then the droplets go down to the base of the river, and then they enrich the alluvial soil. Now, when it so happens, it aids the speedy growth of of hyacinths or aquaweeds. You understand? So then, it changes the taste of the water. Okay, and then 2, because at our intake point, our pumps use a lot of force to abstract the water. They abstract the weeds, the aquatic weeds. Okay, they abstract them, and then they seal up our pipelines. In times past, we cleared these weeds like once in a year, or let's say once in 2 years. But now, almost every 2-3 weeks, we need to hire divers to do that. So it is changing the taste of the water, okay, changing the color of the water, and because of that, we are using more chemicals now at our bone treatment plant and our other treatment plants on the Volta Lake.
I would say we are talking about more chemicals.
But the thing is, we have standards for the production of water and standards for drinking water. So as we add chemicals to it, we'll have to get to the standard that will be okay for consumption.
Okay.
If we add, the water is polluted to a certain extent, where the chemicals, even adding more chemicals, would not be safe for consumption.
Clean it.
We just shut the treatment plant down.
Oh, so does that explain why sometimes we don't have water?
Exactly. It happens, especially where the water bodies are seriously polluted. It happened in the Western region this year, where we couldn't abstract the water any longer. The little that we were able to abstract wasn't economically feasible or prudent for us to actually treat that level of turbid water for consumption. So then, for close to a month, we couldn't abstract water for treatment.
Wow.
Sometimes we have to wait and then see that there's a slight change before we abstract little, and then it's unable to feed the people. So with Galamsey and other forms of pollution that we experience, what happens is that we do this thing. Because of the high turbidity of the water, we abstract the water, and then you lose about 40% as process losses.
Oh.
So you use energy in abstracting the water, and then you lose about 40%, okay, of that volume of water that you have used the energy in abstracting.
I see.
And then you treat the 60%. The water that you have even abstracted is not enough. Now you lose that, and then with the 60% that you have to use more chemicals. Now the chemicals this year alone on the world market has been increased by 60%. because we have to buy with foreign currency, the dollar CD depreciation,
the
exchange rate is also affecting us. And who bears the cost of that?
Wow.
Meanwhile, the cost of production in 2018 was 15.6. We had a tariff of 6.9 per cubic meter. So all this while, who is going to pay for that? At this time, the cost of production is 28 cedis. Now look at the dollar. The cost of chemicals have been increased. Who is going to bear that cost? Okay, so now the people of Ghana demand some efficient services from Ghana Water Company Limited. We want to be a world-class utility. So we also want to do it even more than the people expect from us.
Right.
But under the circumstances, how are we going to attain that feat? You need water. We need to treat the water. Chemicals will not be available because it is too expensive for us to bear.
Right.
Okay,
Before you continue, let me just bring in our viewers and let them know that joining us this morning, and we're very grateful for his presence here, is the Ghana Water Company Limited Head of Communications, and that's Mr. Stanley Mate. What he's doing essentially this morning is that he's walking us through the state in which the Ghana Water Company Limited finds itself, what has been happening since 2018 when they last had tariff review, and what challenges they are currently facing, what you and I need to do to help them to be back on their feet. And when they're back on their feet, what they are promising to do for us. So that's what is happening. Now, some of you have already sent me personal messages asking what the WhatsApp line is. So it will be displayed shortly on the screens. But the WhatsApp line is 05000256621. 05000256621. That's the WhatsApp line. If you have any comments or you have any questions specifically to Mr. Stanley Mate or any of my resource persons who's here, because GRIDCo will also walk us through, not through the same formula, through approach, but they will also tell us why they need a review, a tariff review adjustment as well. So that's the WhatsApp line for those of you who want to be a part of the show. But this is Inside Pages and it's on Metro Television, Saturday mornings 8 to 10. My name is Moro Audu. Mr. Lamante, so what else do we need to know?
Yes.
I see pollution of water bodies.
Yes. So because of lack of time, I think I've explained enough because you have to go through all this. It can take me an hour.
That's fine.
I mean, we are very, very passionate about this and Ghanaians really need to know, but because of lack of time. So I've talked about high consumption of water treatment chemicals. Okay, so with this particular point, and what is happening is that now the dollar is gone up, CD gone down, okay? Then we have had to use more chemicals now than hitherto we were using.
Okay.
Okay, so you pollute the water, chemicals is expensive now, and then we've had to use more. So it means we still lose more, we lose more. So the quantity of chemicals that we're using, let's say, for a certain volume of water, let's say 10 years back. Now with that same volume of water, we are using about 3-4 times the quantity of chemicals that we need to use to treat that same volume of water.
So
am I making sense?
So it's gone up both in value and in volume.
Exactly.
Wow.
And who should bear that cost? Now, especially with Galamsey, okay, we have a lot of siltation at our intakes. So almost every week, every 2 weeks, we need to be desilting the intake area so that we can abstract more water. So now, and we don't have the excavators with the long horns and all that. So we've had to rent them, and almost constantly they are there dredging the intake areas. Now, let me move on so that I can talk about. So this is a graphical representation of how turbidity is rising, and then so you can see pictures of our intake area, and then look at the color of the water, and look at what is happening here. This is our Secheheman treatment plant. This is our Dabuase treatment plant,
this
and
this
is what people are doing to our water.
Look at the color. Heman Headworks.
Yes.
River Pra.
Yes.
This is serious.
Yes. It's terrible.
Wow.
Okay. Now, when we are able, some initiatives, okay.
I thought we're fighting this Galamsey thing. I don't know. It looks like we're not making progress out there. Because based on what you just showed to us, I mean, it looks like we still have a lot of work to do.
Exactly. Seriously.
Wow.
Seriously.
Wow.
And they are not stopping. With all the interventions from government, from civil society, from and the media,
you mean the guys are still
and from ourselves, the people are still there.
Wow.
And in the last few or during the period where Operation Vanguard and the interventions from government, everything, we saw an improvement in the quality of the raw water. What I want to tell everybody is that if we are able to stop the pollution of our river bodies, it means that the water will clear up. The Ghana Water Company Limited will use less chemicals in the treatment of the water, and then it will impact positively on our tariffs.
That's true.
Such that if cost of production comes down, definitely the tariff will come down.
Right.
So let us all get involved. We can't allow just a few people involved in this galamsey thing to hold all of us to ransom. So let's all get on board. Let us manage our river bodies very well. And then it will impact positively for all of us. Okay? We'll even have enough water to use for everything so that it will keep us healthy and productive for our country. Now, I mean, there are some projects that we are undertaking, hoping that everything will go well. I mean, with the little tariff that we've had, we've been able to do some capacity expansion projects and all that. So there are a lot of projects going on. I mean, this is the excavator that I was talking about, and permanently it's on some of our treatment plants because we need to be dredging every time. And then the other aspect is that because our pumps and stuff are not built to abstract that level of turbid water. So for instance, this turbid water is made up of stone particles and sand particles. That is not meant for the type of pumps that we use. So it means that on the frequency of our servicing of our pumps must be that high. Let's say if we are supposed to service our pumps, let's say once in a month or once in 2 months, almost every 2 weeks, we have had to service these pumps. Other than that, they will break down. And when they break down, I mean, the consequences are dying. So what is happening is that when we have to shut down frequently to enable us service our pumps, then it means that there will be high downtimes, which will affect the pressures in the lines and then the volumes of water that we are able to send to the people. So let us all stop this, and then it will help us. Now, we are doing this dredging on most of our intake points. It's Chairman, Winneba, in Sawam, Dabuase, Befikrum. As I speak, Owabi, in Kumasi, we have dredgers on the river that are dredging this thing. Now, a lot of things that we have done through the little tariff that we've had. I mean, we are installing AVR, automatic voltage regulators, that will help us to stabilize power. There's been several occasions where we have announced to the general public that because of the power outages and stuff that we have, it's affected our pumps, and as a result, we have had to shut down for a number of days to replace the pumps and all that. Sometimes they get bent and all that. So now we have installed the automatic voltage regulators so that it will regulate, or it will give us some stable power and then protect our equipment. And these are very expensive, and we were able to do a lot of these things. And more, you see, the part that I'm so proud about is the fact that all these things that I'm talking about is from the little revenue that we collect from the people. The 20 cedis a month, 30 cedis a month that we collect from the people as revenue. We are using this money in doing this magic. Okay, so if we say we need to pay a little more so that we can serve you better, we mean it. You understand? It is not just rhetorical. We mean it. Okay, these are some of our transmission lines that we are trying to change. These things are all capital intensive. They are very high. They are very expensive. But we are using the little money that we are collecting as revenue to do all these things. And then this is the stretch from Pong to Tema. This pipeline is more than 50 years old. So there's a lot of perforations on the line, and as a result, we are losing a lot of water. So we've had to change it, but we don't have the funds to do it. So what we decided is that we'll be changing them, let's say, small. So like 2 kilometers, and then we change. So the weaker sections, so that at least we can strengthen it, get more water into the city, and then the losses will also come down. So we are laying a lot of pipelines and all that, and so. Water loss reduction. Yes.
Now here, how much of the water you've been losing have been able to?
Okay, so we call it
how much of it have you been able to recover?
So we call it non-revenue water. Okay. In 2017, we're at 54%.
54%.
Yes.
In 2017.
In 2017, now per our own
internal initiatives.
Yes, internal arrangements and
Yes.
hard work and wisdom
Right.
and everything that you can think about. We have reduced it to 45% as I speak.
I see.
Now we are
From
doing a lot-
2017 to 2022.
Yes, and then within the water
Why should
industry,
we applaud you for that? It's only what, 10%?
that is
Close
how you
to
see it. And that
10%.
was going to be my next point. In the water industry, if you are able to reduce your non-revenue water by 1% annually, you should be clapped for.
Really?
Yes, exactly. So in Ghana now, in Africa now, Ghana Water Company Limited is a star. We are mentoring a
At
lot of
45%
utilities.
loss, you're a star.
I'm telling you. But the thing is that we have plans to reduce it further. We want to be a world-class utility. Don't forget.
Yes.
And within the global water industry, the losses, allowable losses, is between 20 and 25%.
Right.
And that is our target. So that if from 2017 till now, we've been able to reduce it from 54 to 45, okay, and we are still reducing it further, okay, and we are still doing the right things to enable
What's
us
your
to reduce
target?
it further.
What's
we
your
will hit the
what's,
target.
what's your target?
We want to reduce it by 2% annually.
Annually, good. That's what I
we know
wanted
we
to
can
know.
do more, okay?
Okay.
But the realistic target should
It's
be
2%.
2%. Well, that is realistic. Even it's 1.
If we grant
but we
you-
have given
if we-
ourselves
if we-
ambitious figure of 2.
If we grant you a 334% increase, that's if, a big if, can you do more?
We can, and that
Or
is
for now,
what
it's
we are
just two?
saying. And
Okay,
you will see.
two, that's at the very minimum.
You will see it from the
Okay, that's
presentation
fine.
and the projections.
Okay.
Okay, so these are things that we are putting in place to enable us to reduce it further.
Okay.
Now we have 20 number box zonal electromagnetic meters. Now we are not just using ordinary mechanical meters, but we are using a state-of-the-art digital smart zonal meters. These are huge meters, but they are digital equipment, such that even from our offices we can read the meters from remote areas. Okay, so what we are doing is to install these, and we have 60,000 ultrasonic smart meters. Now we are
Okay.
changing all our meters into smart meters, so that at least we can have accurate readings or accurate measurement of consumption from our consumers. Now 83 mechanical meters, these are domestic meters, and then so what is happening is we are doing more of metering.
Okay.
And we are using more modern and more smart meters.
Okay.
So we are now having zonal meters, we are now having bulk meters at our treatment plant, and then the domestic meters, so that we'll be able to measure accurately the volumes of water that leaves our treatment plant, the volumes of water that enter into a particular district. And if you're a district manager, the expectation is that you will have to account for the water that has been given to you in a month. Okay, so that will be your target, and you need to do everything possible to ensure that you reduce your losses, and you ensure that you sell the water more, and then you account for it at the end of the month. If you are unable to account for the water over a certain period, you are removed from your position. You are not worthy to be there.
So these are some part of the internal reforms.
Exactly, and we'll
that you
talk
have-
about
you have
that as well.
introduced.
So everything is there. So when you have smart meters all out, and you know your jurisdiction and the volumes of water, I mean, you know what is expected of you. Now with a little water, we are still investing into into servicing our customers better.
Okay.
So now you receive your bill on your phone, but if you want it by email, we'll send it to you. Okay, and it's almost instant because we use Android devices in reading the meters. It is sent into the cloud, and then the computation is done, and then in real time you receive your bill.
Right.
You can also sit in the comfort of your home to pay your bills.
Is that happening now?
It's happening. So now, if you owe us, you can pay now from your phone via Momo. Unfortunately, e-levy is not having any impact on us.
Before you move to your next slide, and we have another 5 minutes to wrap up on your presentation. Now we have to go on a break. When we come back from the break, you please try and wrap up in 5 minutes,
Yeah, sure.
and then I'll come back to my other resource person. So this is Inside Pages on Metro Television. We'll be right back. live on Metro Television. We've asked the utility companies to join us this morning to make a case why we should be paying a bit more for electricity, pay a bit more to GRIDCo and also Ghana Water Company Limited. But what we have done this morning is that we invited the Ghana Water Company Limited for some reason. I mean, nobody's paying that much attention to Ghana Water. Everybody's talking about ECG. But the two of them, you know, their roles and their responsibilities, you know, go hand in hand. They need each other. And so Ghana Water, for me, is key. Remember, water is life. Head of Communications is here, Stanley Mate, and he's been walking us through some very, very engaging and interesting slides on where Ghana Water Company finds itself, what they've been doing, and what they intend to do more if we give them more. Okay? So that's where we are now. Mr. Stanley Mate, because we don't have a lot of time, remember that we have GRIDCo. The GRIDCo would also have to tell us why we need to pay more, and then also the Economist will help us understand how this will mean for our pockets. If you can wrap everything up, what is next to be done in 5 minutes, I will truly appreciate it.
Okay, so I'll just go through this, and then I'll go on to the tariff. So now some efficiency improvement
initiative,
program.
That's key.
Yes. Now, Moro, Ghana Water Company ourselves, no consultant, no nothing. We decided on a performance improvement program.
Right.
Okay, so we signed contract with every staff, okay, every manager, from the ministry right down to the lowest staff.
Okay.
We all had targets and we needed to achieve those targets.
Right.
Now, in 2015, our revenue was around 50 million Ghana cedis a month. We were unable to do anything. We were really struggling. Now, with our own performance improvement program, now as I speak, we are collecting 90 million Ghana cedis in a month. And that is what has enabled us to do the several investments that I've been talking about. Okay. So we are asking that if with this little tariff, with all the deficits, okay, we are able to do all these things. Okay, at least you can tell from here that we are really, really working hard. Okay, so add a little more so that we can serve you better. Okay. That's all we are saying. Right. Okay, so I'll just jump the rest. I mean, this picture shows our control room, right, where we have SCADA, we have telemetry, okay, so that we are able to sit in the offices and monitor the pressures in our lines because we have all our pipelines on a digital map, so we're able to look at everything, and then we are able to tell what is happening in the lines, and then we have all every property on land now on a digital map, such that on the click of a button, we are able to tell the data on that property, so that if they have water, then the data should be there. But if per our data, you do not have water, but we come onto the property and realize that you have water, then it means you are illegally connected. Right. Then we'll deal with you. So I'll jump and then I'll move on. These are some ongoing projects. I want to assure the general public that all these projects are going on, and we need the public to pay a little more so that at least we can serve them better. I mean, timely repairs, and I'll move on to this thing. Now move on to, our revenue requirements, and then the tariff. Right. Now, it's been bundled about that we are requesting for 334%. Yes.
Well, it's not true?
So I'm coming to explain. 334%. That's okay, but of 300% of what? The base figure, is the 2018 tariff, which we haven't had any change till now, which is 6.9. Almost negligible. If you add 300, if you multiply by 3.3%, that is the 3.3. Okay, that's the 334% that they are talking about. What is it? It ends up at 28 cedis per cubic meter. Now the thing is that the PLC gave us this template so that we populated the template and then we'll come out with the tariff. Now per the population per the tabulation and the input into the template, we came up with, if we have only operational expenditure into the template, then we'll come out to 19.6 cedis. Okay. But if we have to add our capital expenditure, the infrastructure and blah 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 that I've been talking about, then it will get to 25 cedis. Okay. And then when we add the diesel, then it will get to 28 cedis. So there are three scenarios. So it was only mischief for people to take the upper limit. You understand? Because the lower why didn't they say that we are requesting for, let's say, 150%?
We probably didn't give a comprehensive report. It's not mischief.
So they should have consulted us. Okay. Because then you put fear and panic, and then now everybody's against the Ghana Water Company Limited. But this is what I've presented to you, and I'm saying that we have requested for 19 cedis per. It is the PLC. Let me commend the PLC this time. that this time around, the processes has been very, very transparent. So they've taken us through all the processes, and then we've been able to populate the template, and this is what we have.
Okay.
Okay, so it is not, and all these figures are audited figures.
Okay.
So it's not like we conjured anything just to put a burden on the general public.
Okay.
But then this is it: 19 cities, 25 cities, and 28 cities. And let me add this.
Quickly, sir.
What is the cost of a 500 milliliter of bottle?
Well, it's about
Packaged
one city,
water?
one city 50.
Yeah,
50
you
pesos.
are rich, so you buy it at 5 cities.
I wish I was.
Where you take lunch, you buy it at
Right.
5 cities. Now, where I take lunch, okay, I buy it at 1 city. So let's
Yes.
take the lower limit. I don't want to be mischievous like the way
Right.
people did. So 1 city. Now, 2,000 of these bottles, okay, will give us 1 cubic meter.
Right.
Okay, so how much would that be if I'm buying it from where I take my
1
lunch?
cedi.
So it will be 2,000 cedis
Yes.
per 1 cubic meter.
Yes.
Now, what we are requesting is, let me this time take the upper limit.
Okay.
28 cedis per cubic meter.
Uh-huh.
And we are complaining. Meanwhile, these people are getting the water directly from Ghana Water Company Limited.
I understand what you're saying, but anyway, please go
But
on.
we are comfortable to buy packaged water. And then you see people tell me, I don't drink Ghana water. I drink packaged water. We are comfortable to buy the packaged water. But when it gets to tap flow, which is fresh and even better,
Right.
then you complain. And let me tell you, per survey.
My director Josiah says we should end it here. So
Thank
please
you.
wrap up in just a minute.
Thank
So
you
in a
very
nutshell, what are you saying?
We are saying that
Okay.
Ghanaians expect efficient services from
Okay.
us. We are prepared to do that.
Right.
But we need to pay a little more, at least to make up for the city depreciation.
Right.
Let us all fight Galamsey.
Right.
Okay, and then at least when we pay more,
Okay.
then we can at least talk about the good services that we are talking about. Meanwhile, we have a target for 100% between 2026 and 2030. We are saying that if we get this figure, 2026 will have 2026. There will be 100% access for water.
Great
in the
stuff,
country.
brilliant stuff, amazing stuff. Stalimati, I want to thank you very much. But you'll join us, you'll join the table anyway. So I have loads of questions for Mr. Stalimati, but I will reserve those questions for now because the GRIDCo also has a case to make why we need to pay a bit more for their services. And then the Economist would come in to put all of this in perspective in terms of how it's going to affect our pockets, which is the micro. So in case you just joined us, this is Inside Pages on Metro Television, and my name is Moro Awudu. Now, Mr. GRIDCo man is here. That's Ghana Grid Company Limited. Boss, we have heard everything else that Mr. Stanley Mate has said about why we need to pay a bit more for water. Now, he's actually walked us through what I'll call the top drivers or the key drivers of the cost of producing water. What is your case? You want 48% increment. I don't buy electricity from you. I buy electricity from ECG. So how do you come in the scheme of things in terms of the power value chain and why we should be giving you more for your services?
All right. Thank you very much, Moro, and good morning again to our viewers. So let me correct this.
Okay.
We are asking for a 10% year-on-year.
10% year-on-year?
Year-on-year for the next 5 years.
Okay.
But precisely in 2022, we are asking for a 48% increment on the current tariff.
Right.
And for the outer years, we are doing an average of less than 10%. So if you aggregate all of that and look at the year-on-year growth, we are asking for 10%. So let me put things in perspective now. When it comes to water and electricity, these are public goods, and so they would have to be regulated by a government institution to ensure that they are available and they are also affordable to the people who require these services. So the Ghana Grid Company is within the value chain. We are the ones who transmit the power from the generating stations to the bulk consumers. So ECG is just one of the 32 customers or more of the Ghana Grid Company, but they happen to be our biggest consumer because if you look at our structure as an economy, our demand profile is predominantly residential.
Okay.
Yes. and light industries. Yeah. So because we are a regulated utility, we cannot fix our own prices for the services that we provide. So we have to go through the same process that Stan took us through. We have to use risk-setting guidelines provided by the PURC, that's the regulator of all the utilities in Ghana. And so we complied with that because of what I told you. Fundamentally, all public goods would have to be regulated. So if you look at the electricity value chain, as transporters, there are some costs that we incur. And let me go back a bit. In the 1990s, when we did the power sector reforms, VRA's transmission function was ceded to a new company that was formed. That was the Ghana Grid Company. And when GRIDCo took over the asset of VRA, the transmission asset of VRA, we had to look at investing further to shore up our capacity to be able to carry the power that is generated across the country to various load centers. Okay. If you look at our load profile, the Greater Accra area and then Greater Kumasi areas are the heaviest load centers in Ghana. We've seen some surges in Tamale and other places also coming up. We have provided these capacities mainly through donor support. That's post the power sector reforms. And after that, we decided to look at fusing other financial options into funding the assets that we have. Okay. We developed a master plan in 2011 to help us see areas where we needed to make these investments, which we did. Now, fast forward to 2018, when we had gone through this master plan, we had secured loans on the back of our balance sheet. There were some of the assets that we also funded through bilateral arrangements and some multi-donor support arrangement. We had our tariff reduced. Okay. And so that in itself affected GRIDCo's ability to repay the loans that it had contracted for the asset that it had invested in. So we were really under debt to the extent that we had to cut back on even some critical maintenance activities. Right. Now, in spite of all these challenges, we were also grappling with population explosion. Year on year, demand grows about 8%. And we needed to catch up with the demand growth within the region. And we have come to a stage where urbanization is driving the consumption of electricity. Demand. Yes. We are also fairly being industrialized. And so we need to look at strengthening our network again, improving the quality of service, making sure that the network is much more resilient to carry all the generation that is being done in all the areas. And I must say that there's some skewness of generation. Now we have most of the generation coming from the western part of the country. And it was a strategic decision taken by government to optimize the gas resources that we had on the western corridor. So you look at the western corridor, the Abuaze enclave, we will almost 1,600 megawatts of electricity from the Abuaze enclave all the way to the load centers, Accra, Tema, Kumasi. Okay. Now, the lines that are carrying this power from the western corridor are along the coast, and they are very susceptible to corrosion. Okay. So we are grappling with corrosion on that corridor. So our cost of maintenance is going up because of that. Stan told us a nice story about, the challenges that the Ghana Water is facing. We are facing similar issues with Galamsey. There are some of our towers that are in the mining areas that are being vandalized by these illegal miners. We are facing issues of very high undergrowth along our transmission lines, because if you look at the nature of our operations, we cannot have the corridors in town to build our pylons. So most of our pylons are in the outskirts of town, and in some areas they would have to go through the forested belt of Ghana. We would have to clear all of these undergrowths at very huge cost to us. We incur a lot in clearing these areas. Again, as a regulated utility, we cannot determine our own prices. We go to the same capital markets as the government and other private entities to borrow. We have faced the issue of not being credit worthy enough to contract loans for some of our operations. So,
is it because your books are that bad?
Partly because of that, and also due to so largely, yes, because of that.
It's so with all the utilities.
Right.
Yes, the issue of liquidity among the utilities is worrying, and it's because of power theft in our cases and the payment of bills by various stakeholders, including government entities and Ghanaians
right.
who are not paying exactly what they are billed.
Right.
So if you look at the value chain, the end user tariff, we are able to collect just under 60% of that. And that's
Just
for all of us to share.
Under 60%.
Exactly. And that's for all of us to share. That's the distribution companies, ECG, NETCO, Enclave Power. Sorry, Enclave is not even in this mix here. GRIDCo being the transmitter, and then the independent power producers and VRA. So it becomes quite difficult.
When you say Enclave Power, what do you mean?
It's
IPPs?
It's a third distribution company, but that's operating within
Tema Industrial.
Tema Free Zones area.
Okay.
So they are
call
paid
it
directly.
Enclave.
Yes.
Okay. They're doing what?
They provide electricity within the Free Zones Enclave.
Oh, okay.
So that's a different arrangement. They are not part of this mix.
Right.
So if you look at all of these challenges that have plagued GRIDCo, in spite of the plan we had to modernize the network, because what we inherited from VRA were quite aged assets, and over time we have increased.
So obsolete equipment.
Some of them were obsolete. Some of them were fit for purpose. We had to do a little retrofit and expansion of the infrastructure to be able to carry all the power that was being generated within the regions.
Right.
So you look at the cost of financing now, the cost of maintenance. I've not even brought in the economic dimension of all of these, the exchange rate and the inflation variables. If you look at all of these that I've mentioned, you get a sense that if we don't take measures now to reinvest in the network, there might be a time that it will be difficult for us to sustain the stability that we've had in the recent past.
Okay.
So what GRIDCo is asking for is quite, I would say that we've been quite modest with our request.
Okay.
Really, because we know the economic circumstance that we all find ourselves in now. So we needed to look at how we can spread these investments over time and not to make them burdensome. So we're asking for 48% in the first year. But as I said, if you look at the levelized tariff, we are doing less than the 48%, and the year-on-year growth is 10%, far less than inflation now. And Carl might tell you about projected inflation over the period.
And it has to be made up for.
Exactly.
Because your 10% as against today is 23% inflation, which is still 13% that has to be made up.
Well, but the dynamic really is that as demand also grows, the cost of electricity per unit also reduces. So that also compensates.
So the economies of scale sort of makes it lessens
precisely so
the the losses.
Precisely so.
Okay.
But then to be able to serve all the the demand, we would have to put in the investment.
Okay.
So we had that investment plan running from 2011 to 2020. We couldn't see through the entire investment plan when up to the point where we had a reduction in our tariff.
Okay.
And we have had to review this investment plan because of the growth in demand. And also because of the siting of generation. We need to make sure that wherever there is generation, we have the transmission capacity to carry the power to the load centers, especially in Kumasi, Accra.
Okay.
There are areas where we have some spot load. And in time past, we were resilient enough to serve all these spot load. But we are reaching a stage where we might not be able to serve these spot load. So I made mention about Tamale.
Okay.
We had to be intentional about increasing the capacity beyond Kumasi.
Okay.
Now there are issues of poor voltages in Kumasi. We are putting in an SVC that would help us to improve voltages in Kumasi.
Okay.
We are talking about the Ameri plant to go into Kumasi to make sure that the constraints we have on those corridors are reduced. As a modern network, we talk about radial lines. Radial lines are single lines that are going to customer premises. And it's not something that we should have as a developing country, because what happens is that customers are then not able to have alternatives. We are not able to provide our customers alternatives whenever we take out these radial lines. So we need to make all of these investments.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we find ourselves in an economic situation where we might not be able to ask for so much.
Right.
So we needed to spread this investment over the regulatory period of 5 years.
Okay.
And all these discussions are coming up because for the very first time, we are talking about a multi-year tariff.
Mm-hmm.
Previously, the PRC would have had a tariff that would span 2 years.
Okay.
Now we are talking about a tariff that would be available, we would have for the next 5 years, and it will be up for review again in another 5 years.
Right.
So we need to broaden this discussion. If I may continue, if you look at the plans that we've had in shoring up our generation capacity in the last few years, we've been quite intentional in ensuring that we have adequate generation. I think that now we need to broaden that discussion, have a national dialogue on funding the assets in the power sector.
Right.
So that we now pay particular attention to transmission. Mm-hmm. We understand that without the grid, we'll not be able to have reliable power. So
just a quick one. When Stanley was addressing us, one of the things he said was that as far back as in 2015 or so, the government at the time had guaranteed for state institutions such as Ghana Water Company and I think a few other institutions to borrow on their own balance sheet.
No, there was a directive or a policy that got all loans contracted by government on behalf of the state-owned agencies or enterprises must be on-linked to the state to the agencies to settle.
So did GRIDCo take advantage of that?
Okay, so
it is not an advantage.
Similar.
It was a
directive. They borrowed on your behalf. Yeah, they borrowed on your behalf. Yeah, so that's it.
So our situation was similar, but in our case, after 2012, we had borrowed on our balance sheet for most of our projects.
Right.
Of course, we had some projects that were funded by donor agencies. There were some few grants, and government also funded some projects for us. Because, see, we are a limited liability company, but we are providing a public good. And so we cannot be excessively commercial.
Okay.
Because you need to look at providing the service to drive development. And so it might not make economic sense for us to extend the grid to certain parts of the country. Okay. But because it's a public good, we would still have to do so, even if the revenues from those corridors might not be sufficient.
Fantastic.
Because electricity drives development.
Great. Let me come to King Carl Tonam Duho, who is a finance and economic consultant with Imani. Now, look, I think it's quite obvious that we are in an economic dire strait. the economy is not looking good. But then again, we're being asked to pay more for electricity and water. And GRIDCo is also making a case where we should give them some more. Can Ghanaians take this? And if PURC accepts or approves these tariffs, no matter which amount, what would this mean for our disposable incomes?
Yeah, so thank you very much. And it's very interesting to listen to the presentations from the two sides. But taking the discussions with regards to what has been happening since 2019, we see that both institutions have waited since 2019, and it seems like we have come to the level where they want to now try to adjust their prices to be able to show up.
Point of correction, it is not we who have waited, it's the
PURC.
regulator. Because so
it's not your fault.
Yes,
That's
it's not fault.
Yeah,
it's not his fault.
So I'm not putting the blame, but
Right.
I'm looking at the full structure.
Right.
And whilst the PRC is coming to the institutions to make the adjustment to be able to decide for the figures, we are looking at a kind of a medium-term projection. And because of that, the two institutions want to be very careful about what they put out there because of the uncertainties with regards to the future. But I see that for Ghana Water Company, for example, the projections they have tend to be to rise till the middle of to the third year, and then you see that there's a fall in the projections. And also for GRIDCo and for electricity, there is that kind of sharing of the rates. But there is that kind of focus to look at the current situation and adjust the prices to be able to start the changes. But for the lay Ghanaians, the impact on some of these things are very critical, not just on the households, but for the firms. For the firms, for example, we have to start looking at the implication for the business climate. Businesses have to use electricity, they have to use water, and also for the households, there's implication on the income that they have, the disposable income, and the cost of living is increasing. And taking this in perspective of the previous inflation rates for April 2020 that has been released, and what we are seeing currently, and what the future will hold, it is very critical. We are in a critical condition as a nation. And if you look at the situations and the various presentations that have been made, you see that we have both commercial and technical losses in some of these institutions. So we have to have a balanced discussion. And I see PRC is trying to engage stakeholders. There was a survey that has been shared, and they are trying to pick up opinions and views from the populace. But as Ghanaians, we have to brace ourselves and know that prices will go up. The impacts will get into our pockets. But also, we have to be able to hold the institutions more accountable at this time. I understand that there is the plan to ensure that there's some kind of performance review also for the institutions to be able to track what is their progress in the various regions. We see regional variations in what we see. You see Galamsey and various other issues that are affecting the activities of the water company and the electricity institutions also. And as a nation, our political will has to be up. We have to be active. We have to be proactive. Look at what Galamsey is causing the country. We have waited for just a few to destroy the environment, pollute the waters, and we have to come back to pay it. What's the impact on our poverty level? We have to look at the impact of it. So there are implications of some of these things. Also, with regards to the inflation rate, the question now is that what are the tools that the government has in place to be able to address some of these issues? For the PRC issues, we have to ensure there's discussion. But also at the macro level, the Bank of Ghana and the government has to be able to act and understand that there are both supply side and then also demand side policy options that the government has to apply. Already, e-levy is in section. The tool that is effective for the government to actually use is to ensure that there's that reduction of spending. There's a cut of the wastages that we have in the country.
Well, that's quite interesting, and I don't know how you felt when you kept hearing, because for the two of them, even including ECG, there are constants. Of course, there are variables depending on which institution you look, but there were constants, and the constants were exchange rate, inflation, exchange rate, inflation. Does that sort of bring home the worries that you keep expressing? I mean, anytime we hear about, exchange rate losses, we hear about inflation, we hear about all the other ones. It's what we're hearing. Does that bring that home to the kind of worries that you express anytime you hear that the city is losing value and so on and so forth? Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yeah. So the macroeconomic condition of the country
direct
will affect whatever happens, and the two utilities are critical.
Right.
Water and electricity will feed into a lot of other issues. And because of that, we have to be very critical at this time.
Okay.
The macroeconomic management has to also be taken seriously.
That's interesting. Now, Stanley, I have a few questions for you, and I'll come to the GRIDCo man too. Now, Stanley, what quantum of the tariff you are asking us to pay, what quantum of it captures technical and commercial losses? And if indeed you factor that into the tariffs you are proposing to the PURC to approve, why should we pay you? Why should we bear that loss? It's got nothing to do with us directly. Why should we bear that loss?
Okay, in the water industry globally, there's some allowable
You mentioned
losses.
25.
Yes, in 20 and 25.
Right.
Now in Africa, it's more.
Okay.
Okay, and the PLC's computations, they've given us up to 45.
Okay.
And so we have really worked hard to 45 now. But we are looking at the global target, and we are working towards that.
Okay.
Now to enable us attain that, we need to do a lot of investment, and that is what we are doing. And seriously,
And you can't do that first before we reward you for it?
it has always been like that. They talk of chicken and egg situation, and every time go and do this, and then you come back for the tariff. You go and do it, and then you do not get cost
Because
reflective
some
tariff.
Ghanaians can't trust
But
that
then
if we
the
give
thing
you,
is-
you would do it. I mean,
The thing is, currently on the global market, okay, the cost of chemical is going up. And just this year alone, by 60%. Even to get shipment into Ghana is now a challenge. Okay? And then look at the depreciation of the cedi. So if you expect efficient services from us, we need to pay more. How? And with the sort of business that we are doing, without the cash, we can't even do anything. Now look at our situation is that you drink the water before you pay. Okay, it is not like prepaid, but it is postpaid. So you have to supply the people with the water, and then you struggle to collect. If you go to the developed countries that we admire so much, some of them read their own meters and then send to the utility, and then they are billed. Their payment is connected to their accounts. It is deducted from source.
Okay.
They don't have any challenge.
Right.
Okay, here it is not so. So you burden us the more when you have to pay your bills and you do not pay after consuming the water. Somebody will drink water, not pay for 3 months. If he doesn't get water for 2 days, then you say, hey, I've not had water for 2 days. Why do you expect me to pay?
because one of the things that bothers Ghanaians quite a bit is where we see a best water pipe and then there's nobody to call. Even if there's somebody to call, you give a contact line, you call, it doesn't get to be resolved. But now I notice you want to do digital.
Exactly.
You
But
know,
globally,
Yeah.
pipelines will get broken at a point.
Yeah,
and you have to repair them.
But how quickly? Do you
How
fix
quickly?
these
Our
lines
response
when they
time is
install?
24 hours. In the presentation, maybe I skipped it because of
Yes,
time.
yes.
But our response time is 24 hours. And
But
that is the
but you
global
respond
standard.
within 24 hours.
Yes, exactly.
You do?
Yes, averagely 24 hours. Now, the thing is, if, for instance, there's a best today,
Yes.
okay, and we don't get the information to go repair it and it goes beyond the day, then you can't blame us for it. But what we are saying is that for response time, it is from the time that you are informed. And from the time that you are informed, for the time of repairs, our response time is 24 hours.
Okay.
To enable us get the information on time, we have put up a state-of-the-art call center
Okay.
that with toll-free lines.
Yeah.
All we want is Ghanaians to identify where the challenge is, call our toll-free line, then pick all the information, and then we'll go there to repair.
Mr. GRIDCo man, so somebody has asked me to ask you this question, that why would you talk about pylons suffering from corrosion? What's the use of applying anti-corrosive spray to the pylons if you keep complaining about pylons suffering from corrosion? What's the use of applying those anti-corrosion, how do you call it, substances?
All right.
Or spray?
So the pylons that we deploy in various parts of our network are different based on the topology.
Okay.
So if you look at those that are the coastal belt, we even make sure that they have enough galvanization to withstand the harsh rigors of the sea.
Okay.
But in spite of all this, I mean, you'll see that the salinity of the sea can even wear off the galvanization. So we still buy anti-rust paint, and we have our team always painting them. But we are talking about a line that spans over 200 kilometers from Takoradi all the way to Tema. And so how many of these towers can you paint in a week? Looking at even our staff strength. And we've been so effective that we have not overly increased our staff numbers. There are some of these things that we've outsourced. So it's difficult to have everything galvanized. And the structural engineers will tell you that at certain level of galvanization, the metal can even be a bit brittle and break off, yes.
Right. Let me read a few messages, and then I'll come to it. Now, I need you to think about this, that when you look at the current economic situation, of course, and also the political consideration, because I know you're not a political analyst per se, but I'm sure you have an opinion on it. How much do you think this will feed into the PURC's, approval process? Because they also engage in stakeholders and all, but we cannot take away the fact that there will definitely be a political and economic consideration to all of this. And how much, or how should we manage our expectations or how should they manage their expectations as they seek for this approval? So Abdul Razak from Tamale says, he says, boss, it's been more than 3 years now. We don't get water. They don't bring us water bills again. We buy water every month. That's from Abdul Razak from Tamale. And he also continues to say that it's been more than 3 years now. Okay, so I think I've read it. Good morning, Moro. The ordinary Ghanaian cannot be burdened with the proposed astronomical utility hikes in addition to payment of obnoxious e-levy without any commensurate increase in salaries and wages. It will be prudent for these entities to deal with both the commercial and technical losses and be sure that these state agencies reimburse monies owed. That's David Edu. I want to find out from Stanley if the government has paid for the use of the free water during COVID. Yes, a lot of people are asking that.
Yes.
No, so please, just let's note it down. Is that not the cause of the indebtedness? If the water supply, or if you supply water at 12 a.m. and you shut down at 6 a.m., what is GWCL telling Ghanaians? How do they intend to stop the wastage in the system? Hi, bro. How come under His Excellency John Mahama's visionary regime, the ECG made a net profit of over 200 million cedis, but under a government that promised and bragged to save the public purse, blah, 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 we're experiencing losses at ECG. Not only that, the economic situation in the country are really unbearable for the majority of the suffering Ghanaians. It goes on and on and on. My regards to all Santa Clausians, including Stalimate. Old boy, that's from Papa BCU.
I see.
Oh, you're Santa Clausian yourself?
No,
okay.
From the other side.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Hello, Mr. Moro. I've been watching your program and I have a few questions to ask. I want to know the permanent solution which they have put in place concerning the problem they have with abstracting. I don't know what you mean abstracting the water. 2, have they also reported the challenges to the minister who's in charge of the water and sanitation? And if so, what response did they give to them? 3, I also want to advise them to see to the water that they produce, because most of it becomes waste because you see best pipe and most of the people around that vicinity refuses to attend to it. Tadios Asolengla Inwa says, use Intel, that's community members, to identify households with illegal connections. It is rampant in some parts of Kumasi. Water theft is the company's bane. For Galamsey, it is difficult issues because nature's candle is burning at both ends, poverty and environmental destruction. And this one says, please, this is Abdallah from Tamale. Ghana Water Company should ask Nana and his ministry to pay for everything you are enjoying, and you want to put the burden on Ghanaians. No, it won't happen. Isaac from Sunyani says, good morning. March 2022, my water bill rate was 3,200 and blah, 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 blah. In April is 5,000 something. Is that increment? Okay. It is very disturbing when the poor citizens are made to bear the burden, resulting from the inefficiency of the systems authorities have voted to improve and bring relief. Why should the customer pay for the production losses when it is the responsibility of the utilities agencies to ensure efficiency? All right, so look, I don't think I can read all the messages because I have close to about 55 messages. So I've had to carefully select some of them, randomly. But there are some questions for you, so if you can respond to it.
Yes,
One has to do with the
free water.
free water. Has it been paid?
Yes.
It's been paid?
Yes.
In
To the
full?
best of my knowledge, government has paid everything. And it
In
is
full?
part of the data that I
You
present.
supplied?
Yes. And like I said, it's an audited thing. So
Okay.
we can't put in
Something that's not been
something
audited.
that has no.
You can't
not at
mislead
all.
us.
No,
basically.
not at all.
Okay, so that question has been answered.
Yes.
Yes. Best water pipe. People say it's quite rampant. Water theft is one of your bane.
Okay, so globally, there'll be best pipes.
Right.
There are best pipes. Okay, but then how do we have them sold?
Okay.
Now, as a company, we can't be everywhere all the time.
Right.
So we expect the citizens also to support us. Just support us by picking your phone, and just calling us that this is a pipe best that I found here. Maybe take a video shot and then add the Google location to it, and then you send to our call center. We will follow up immediately and have it and have it repaired.
Okay.
So that arrangement is there, and we get people informing us that we go rectify them.
Right.
And per statistics and data, our response time is 24 hours.
Right.
Okay, averagely 24 hours.
Okay.
And that's global standards.
Okay.
Yeah.
You give us 3 scenarios,
Yep.
which informs the different tariffs that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which of this do you prefer? Do you have a preference for any of the scenarios?
No, for us, our operational expenditure can even be enough for us.
Really? That's just the OPEX?
Yes, just
Which is
the OPEX
which
to
is
be
the
enough
third
to-
scenario?
Yes, so that if government is prepared to take the cost of the diesel expenditure,
Okay.
and it's also going to take our capital expenditure, our loans and everything.
Yes.
Operations is fine for us. So
But
we
you
just
also
buy-
owe government. That's the thing.
That is the this thing
Overhang.
that overhang that I was talking about.
Okay.
So as a result of the policy to
Yes.
unlend all loans to the state-owned enterprises,
Yes.
that is why we have that debt. Now, from 2018 to now,
Yes.
okay, and even prior to 2018, we've not had any cost-reflective tariff.
True.
So for every cubic meter of water that we produce and
Yes,
sell,
yes.
we lose some amount of money. All those debts are there.
Okay, so you owe government. Government owes you.
Government owes us, yes,
Because government uses your water.
Yes.
Have they paid everything?
Yes, we are doing everything possible for state-owned.
No, but I'm talking about, yes. So every state-owned institution.
Yeah, they must pay, and
No,
there's
I'm
a
not
mechanism.
I'm not asking whether
So-
they have to pay. I know they have to pay, but have they paid?
Yeah, okay. For instance,
Because you see, the reason I'm asking because we need to do some netting off.
yes, and what I'm saying that there's also some essential service providers
Yes.
that no matter how much they are owing,
Like Kolebu
and all that,
the hospitals and
you
so
can't
on. Yeah.
disconnect them. So we need to put in some measures to enable government pay. And we
When
are
you
doing
net
that.
it off, in terms of how much all these government or state institutions owe you, as against what you owe them, who would be at the short end of the stick?
I think
will still come back to
the
you.
GWCL. We owe government more.
More.
Yes.
That's interesting. Let me come to.
So if there's that offset, at least
You'll be fine.
We should be fine.
But
And then
how-
and then we
to
have
what
that
extent-
line item within the tariff
Yes.
where we can service our loans. We should be fine.
So that means you may not
Because
necessarily need
tomorrow
more
now
money.
we are working too hard, and now
Yes.
it's like we've internalized that strategy, that attitude, such that GWCL staff are working more than they should.
You're
And
breaking
then-
your backs.
Yes, and then we're doing well. Now we are used to it, because especially with our performance improvement program.
Right,
You know, it helped us so much, and then it is part of our culture now.
Okay.
and we want to continue with it like that.
I'll ask you the same question just briefly. You also have technical and commercial losses as well.
No, we don't have.
You don't
commercial,
have that. You don't have.
but we
You have technical losses.
We have only
Have you
technical
passed
losses.
that on to ECG? Oh, have you
Okay,
passed that
so
on into the
let
tariffs?
me explain a bit.
Okay, sure.
I mean, because the transmission sector isn't as common as the distribution, usually there is a bit of confusion around our operations. So,
Okay.
in the transmission system, because you are carrying the power over long distances, there are inherent losses within the network.
Okay.
So, the threshold that the regulator allows us is 4.1%
Okay.
of the power that is transmitted on the grid.
Right.
And currently, we are doing around 4.5.
Okay.
That's GRIDCo.
Okay.
We
When you say 4.5 or what?
4.5% of
Loss.
what's- Yes, loss.
Oh, then that's not
Technical
bad.
loss. Yes.
As against what threshold?
4.1.
Okay, so you still have some 4%.
Yes. Yes.
And,
Point four
0.4%.
percent.
Yeah.
Yes. And we have modeled our investment program over the next 5 years such that by 2027, we should have our losses below the regulatory threshold of 4.1. We
Is
are
achievable?
seeking to do 3.8. Yes, if we are able to deploy all the capex that we've planned for the period. I mean, there are key projects that will reduce the losses at where the loads are. The main load centers are Accra, Kumasi. If you look around in the last few years, we've added some few substations and bulk supply points in Accra just to make sure that we keep things at bay. So if you're able to deploy all of these, it's very likely that we'll come below the threshold.
Allow me to ask you this question as a mere mortal or as a layman. Now, your biggest customer is ECG.
Yes.
75% of what you take from VRA and the IPPs. ECG takes 75% of it. Why don't you, it may sound simplistic, but why don't you pass on whatever that you need to be able to operate efficiently and effectively to ECG? So ECG can make a case to us and say, look, this is how much we're buying, this is how much we're taking electricity from GRIDCo. And so it's got to be paid for. Because if you listen to Stanley Mante, they don't have your kind of value chain. You're both the generator, the transmitter, and the distributor. So if you look at the case they are making, there's a case that has to be made for how much, you talked about the pylons and so on and so forth.
Transmission lines.
Yeah, the transmission lines and so on. They factor all of that into the operational cost, and which actually influences or informs how much they're proposing to PURC to approve as their tariffs. But I don't see that. When you look at the ECG line items, I don't see the PURC bit.
Okay, so...
Wouldn't that have made your work easier? So you're just in the background. You say, look, this is what it's going to cost me, so take it and go and...
It might be a bit difficult because in the grid,
right?
On the grid, the pricing regime is what we call the postage stamp approach. So wherever you are, you pay the same amount per kilowatt hour.
Right.
In other regions, they do the distance-sensitive pricing, where you pay based on the distance from your node to the generation point. Where you pick the power to the generation point.
I see.
But if you look at the chain in Ghana, VRA would have to look at its price, the price at which you will generate power from all of its plants.
Okay.
The hydro plants, the thermal plants, and they'll come up with a bulk generation tariff, which is a weighted price of all the values of the plants.
Okay.
And then GRIDCo will come up with its transmission service charge. ECG, NETCO would all compute their distribution service charges. So the end user tariff is composite of all these in the value chain.
Oh, then that's fine.
So that is what we are doing now.
Okay.
The PURC will wait for all of this to be done, and then we'll determine the end user tariff.
That answers my question then. We have 5 minutes to wrap up to end this conversation. So my final question to both of you, and I need you to think about it. Now, my final question to both of you is this, that if PURC, because PURC eventually is going to speak to the government and factor in all these things you're talking about. Look, you guys have to give us some money and so on and so forth. Now, if the PURC comes back to you and says that, look, we have, after the consultations, we can't give you what you want, or we can't give you anything at all, what will happen to your entities? And I'm talking about the institutions that you're managing. So I'll come back to you on that question. King Carl.
Political economy issues.
Yes, perhaps let me start, the question I'll start with you, which is that if the government grants them their wish, you've already told us what it will do to us, the end user. If the government doesn't, or the PURC doesn't, what will happen?
Well, when the PURC does that, the impact would be heavy on the citizenry.
Okay.
But from what we are seeing in the various projections that they are making for the institutional level, that means that they'll be able to do what they want to do. They'll be able to enhance their analytical capacity. They'll be able to enhance their operational abilities and be able to offer service quality that is beyond what they have now. But the implications would hit back on the economy. So that is where the issue is. And because it is a multi-year regime, what it means is that there are also political economy issues. Because whatever is agreed would have to enter into the next election year. But the political actors will be very critical about that. So if you see for the lowest, the moderate, and the highest rate that we are considering, if the rate that is agreed eventually is between the moderate and the highest, you see that the risks to the current government will be higher as compared to if it is between the lowest and the moderate. So there are those things that will have to play.
The dynamics at play.
The dynamics will be
Wow,
critical.
it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yes,
it's a tough one for the PRC for the first time. And so, Salimati, like he said, whether we like it or not, the political and economic factors will play out. And that would influence or inform what decisions will be taken. It's not just going to be purely a technical issue. Because when we listen to you, you make a good, sound, very juicy business case. And I've just watched you. I've listened to this man too. Valid arguments being made. But it may not be interpreted as such by the PURC. What would you do? And how would that affect your operations if you're not granted your wish? Because you see, with what you're currently getting, you talked about all these capex, the capital expenditure items that you're rolling out. So for somebody who's not able to meet your operation, your OPEX, you're not able to meet your operational cost, how are you able to hive off some of the money to undertake some of these big capital, expenditure that I'm wondering how you've been able to do it. You are magicians.
Yes, thankfully, you said it right. We are magicians. and should it always continue like that?
Right.
Now we are buying.
Magic cannot continue.
Yes, we are buying chemicals. We are buying inputs, procuring inputs from the world market. Okay, we all know what is happening. So if you keep burdening the utilities, then what do you expect us to do?
We paid someday. We might decide to avoid it now,
Someday
but we'll pay tomorrow.
Someday when. You know,
Right.
I have heard this over and over again. Anytime we go for tariff adjustment, they'll say, go and do this, and then you can go and reduce your losses. And now we have strategized and we are doing more than they expect of us.
Right.
Now you still want to burden us more. But the thing is, we also expect efficient services. We want to have regular flow of water. Now we can get a regular flow when we have the chemicals in there. We can get a regular flow when we've extended the pipelines. Okay, when we are not polluting our river bodies and we are getting enough water. All we are saying is let's all get on board. Let's pay a little more. Just a little more, not much, just a little more,
Right.
so that at least we can get the services that we want.
Right.
Now, in paying a little more, let us also do the other bit of it.
Okay.
The raw material that we use in this thing in our process, the resource, the water resource. Let us all get together and then let us fight the pollution, and that will bring our tariffs down. So if
Okay.
you don't want to pay much, let us all get involved.
Yeah.
The people involved in the Galamsey,
Yeah, but-
okay,
but
the population of people
It's-
involved in
that's what I'm
Galamsey
saying.
is almost negligible compared to the entire population.
That's what I'm saying, that you've made a solid, legitimate, fantastic business case. The reality, however, is that there are some Ghanaians who cannot pay.
Moreover, we are
Now,
not going to use emotions to buy chemicals on the capital market.
I understand you, but I'm saying that this 334%. I mean,
But don't just mention a big, of which base figure. It's almost negligible.
Whatever it is going to be some increment.
Yes, but
Who
it's
will be directly
negligible.
affected and who
Let
will
me-
be spared?
Let me tell you something.
Are there still lifeline
Let me
customers
tell
who will
you,
be
in my
spared?
presentation, I said
Yes.
we had 800 plus customers.
Yes.
Okay, out of these 800,000 customers,
Okay.
80% of them are
A lifeline.
domestic consumers.
Yes.
Out of the 80%, 45% are lifeline.
So you look at
consumers.
80% as
So-
100%.
So you realize that even what you are requesting for
Okay.
is
It's
nothing.
negligible.
Yes, it's almost negligible. So let us pay a little more, then we can get the services that we
Right.
want. So you hear the thing big, but it is nothing.
Okay.
You know, out of our expenditure or out of the little revenue, 40% goes to ECG.
What would you do if you're not granted your wish?
Well, it depends on the level with which they meet our expectations.
50% should be fine?
50% of what we are asking for,
it's small.
it will not be adequate, but what
You
it
can
means
manage.
is that we would have to go back and then rethink our plan going
Right.
into the next year, because there are critical areas that if we don't work on within the next 2 years, I mean, if for those of you who have benefited from our stakeholder engagements, there
Right.
are areas that within the next 2 years, if you don't work on, there will be a lot more discomfort in the form
Wow.
of outages, and
Wow.
we don't want that to happen.
happen.
So I know it's unbearable. The economic condition now is a bit difficult. I remember we're all in the same economy. Whether you're a household or an industry, we face the same thing.
Right.
Our staff face the same thing, and even worse, because in
Right.
our case, when the line drops, even in the middle of the night,
So
our people are working.
so Ghanaians should not blame you if we start experiencing some outages because we've not paid what we're supposed to pay.
That's the
That's a
reality.
difficult one.
That's the reality.
Boss, 1 minute. So where do we go from here? I mean, how are we supposed to manage our lives now that we're supposed to pay tariffs? We're paying. I used to pay $350 to fill my tank. I'm now paying $550 for fuel. You know, the exchange rate. Look, what are we supposed to do?
Well, it's a difficult situation that we have as a country. The point is that whatever it is, there is a projection that there will be some level of increase, only that we don't know the specific extent to which the increase will be affected. And what it means is that the cost of living will be impacted and the macroeconomic environment will be impacted. Other issues like unemployment are critical issues. So we are calling on the political leaders to be apt and doing, to be more
let's put the
proactive.
politics aside,
Exactly.
and do
Yes.
what we have to do.
Exactly.
Because Ghana is all we have.
Exactly.
All right. So someone said, good morning, Stanley. I work at the port and I have seen the invoice of clearing of Ghana Water Chemicals. They leave the containers to accrue a lot of rent. Sometimes, he's talking about demurrage, I believe. Sometimes over 3 months or more at the port. And imagine the amount they will pay for 20 containers for 60 days for the shipping line and terminal. They play the majority of the losses. So yes, he says all these things will be sorted out. But anyway, I want to thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Stanley Martin. I think it's been wonderful having you this morning. And, you know, it's been amazing. It's been fascinating. And also a very good friend of mine. What's his name? And then the name was just yes, Aqua, Mr. Ko Aqua, and also the king himself, King Carl Tonam Duho. I want to thank you very much for joining us. My name is Muradu. Thanks for watching. Same time next week, Saturday, we'll be here with another edition of Inside Pages. Inside Pages, we're different. Have a good day. Bye bye.